Imagine a thriving town, rich in culture and community, suddenly engulfed in flames and hatred, leaving nothing but ashes and memories. In this video, we unveil the haunting story of the Rosewood Massacre of 1923. Hey folks, I'm Professor Darius, in the flesh, and you're watching African Elements. Welcome if you're new, and if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. In this video, we journey through history and unravel the truths of the Rosewood Massacre of 1923. But before we begin, I'd like to give a huge thanks to the history makers in our Patreon community. Your support has been monumental in helping to build this channel, and I can't thank you enough. You can join them and gain early access to ad-free videos by following the link in the description. Now, let's explore the Rosewood Massacre of 1923, a catastrophic event that not only shattered a community, but also left an indelible mark on America's narrative. The early 20th century in America saw severe racial tensions and violence. African American communities often faced the brunt of these hostilities. Understanding this climate is essential to grasping the Rosewood events. The era saw the rise of Jim Crow laws and a resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan. This created an atmosphere where racial violence was common. Authorities often ignored or even endorsed such violence. Before the massacre, Rosewood was a thriving African American community. It succeeded despite the systemic racial challenges. The town's residents were middle class and engaged in various professions. They were teachers, carpenters, farmers, and shop owners. Rosewood was a symbol of Black independence and resilience. The local economy was diverse. It included agriculture, local businesses, and turpentine mills. Churches, schools, and social organizations were central to community life. The Rosewood Massacre began with an incident involving Fannie Taylor, a white woman in a nearby community. She claimed a black man had assaulted her. This allegation, despite the lack of solid evidence, ignited a storm of racial animosity and violence. Taylor's accusation led to the rapid mobilization of white mobs around Rosewood. Fueled by racial prejudice, these groups began planning attacks on the African American community. Rumors about the assault spread quickly, heightening racial tensions. Local newspapers played a role in this, often publishing sensationalized and biased reports. Seeking vengeance, white mobs began to form, comprising individuals from surrounding areas. The Rosewood Massacre unfolded over several days in January of 1923. It started with targeted attacks on residents. It escalated to the complete destruction of the town. The media played a critical role in shaping public perception of the Rosewood Massacre. Newspapers at the time often portrayed the events with racial bias. They emphasized the alleged assault over the subsequent violence against African Americans. This biased reporting influenced public opinion and clouded the true nature of the events. The way the media framed the Rosewood story also had lasting effects, influencing how the event was remembered and understood. It's crucial to analyze these narratives to understand the racial biases prevalent in media reporting at the time. On the other hand, survivors and eyewitnesses gave chilling accounts of the violence. The Rosewood Massacre of 1923, a harrowing episode of racial violence, is vividly captured through the voices of those who witnessed and survived the tragedy. Sarah Carrier, a survivor, recounted the horror that unfolded with poignant clarity. Her words paint a vivid picture of the day that changed Rosewood forever. I remember the day when white people came to kill us, and we had to run to the woods to save our lives. I can still hear the screams and see the fires in my mind. Minnie Lee Langley, another resident of Rosewood, echoed the chaos and fear that gripped the town. Her testimony sheds light on the ruthless nature of the attacks. They were shooting guns and setting fire to our houses. We had no choice but to run away, leaving everything behind. James Carrier, a witness to the massacre, provided a haunting account of the brutality inflicted upon the men of Rosewood. I saw men being hunted down like animals. There was no mercy in the eyes of those who were attacking us. Together, these accounts form a narrative tapestry of the Rosewood Massacre, illustrating the depth of the tragedy through the eyes of those who lived it. The Rosewood Massacre led to the complete obliteration of the town. Aggressors burned homes, churches, and businesses to the ground. This act of violence erased a thriving community from the map. The massacre displaced Rosewood's entire population. Survivors fled, seeking refuge in nearby towns. Many never returned to Rosewood, leaving behind their homes and livelihoods. This displacement had long lasting effects on the community. It fractured families and disrupted generations. Nevertheless, in the aftermath of the massacre, there was a glaring lack of legal response. No one was prosecuted for the violence inflicted on the Rosewood residents. The Rosewood Massacre left a profound mark on the nation's memory. Efforts to memorialize the event have been crucial in acknowledging this dark chapter of American history. Memorials and historical markers now stand in Rosewood. These acts of remembrance play a vital role in the healing process. They also ensure that future generations remember the lessons of Rosewood. Decades later, efforts emerged to seek justice for the survivors and the descendants of Rosewood. In 1994, the Florida legislature passed a bill to compensate the survivors and their descendants. This was a landmark decision. It acknowledged the state's failure to protect its citizens and offered reparations for the harm caused. On the morning of May 4, 1994, in a historic ceremony at the old Capitol building in Tallahassee, Florida, Governor Lawton Chiles signed the first state legislation in the nation to compensate African Americans for past racial violence. It is important to understand that the Rosewood Massacre was not an isolated incident in American history. Other communities have experienced similar racial violence. Examples include the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921 and the Elaine Massacre of 1919. Comparing these events helps us understand the broader context of racial violence in the United States. It also highlights the patterns of racial injustice and often inadequate response from authorities. Understanding the Rosewood Massacre is essential for comprehending the broader context of racial violence in America. However, analyzing the Rosewood Massacre in the context of similar events offers insights into contemporary racial issues. It helps draw parallels between past and present racial tensions. Understanding these historical events is crucial for addressing current racial injustices. It also informs efforts to prevent similar atrocities in the future. The impact of these events extend far beyond the destruction of Rosewood and other communities. They have influenced legal policies, cultural narratives, and historical education. These events have occurred far too often in our nation's history. To see what I mean, check out this video on the Tulsa Race Massacre and the destruction of Black Wall Street. Look at the patterns and similarities, because understanding them is critical to ensuring that such tragedies never occur again. I'm Professor Darius. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, I'll see you in the comments.